The following is a Bergen-Fischer media production.
Okay, so today's going to be a little bit different than what I think we're all used to. Obviously, the first major difference is I'm releasing this on Saturday when the normal release date is Friday morning. That's because I just got back from a bit of a drive. And when I say a bit of a drive, I mean, in the last 7 days, I drove in the neighborhood of 9,000 kilometers, which for the Americans, I think is somewhere in the ballpark of 5,600-ish miles. Basically, a lot of time in the car. A lot. And I got to see everything, it was one of my bucket list items was I had never driven really any farther east than Calgary. And I made it as far as Niagara Falls, both the Canadian and the American side, which was kind of cool. Even dipped down to, New York a little bit, which was fun. But, just everything was just a big rush. But whatever. I got to see a lot of things. I did something that most people, I think, find a little bit different, which was that I didn't really take pictures. I wanted to experience everything with my eyes and looking right at the stuff. I didn't want to be looking at things through the lens of a camera or through my phone screen. But I don't know, enough rambling about that. Basically, I was in the moment, big fan of in the moment. And I don't know, for anybody who hasn't done it before, I say try it. The other thing that I'm kind of prescribing is I spend the majority of this drive alone in the car. And while I did listen to a couple of podcasts along the way, these weren't so much out of a need to kill time or to entertain myself so much as it was just trying to keep myself a little bit more alert so that I could push the driving time a little bit farther than I otherwise might have been able to do. But for the most part, again, I intentionally didn't listen to music, intentionally didn't listen to podcasts. I had my phone on silent. I didn't want any distractions. I wanted to be able to take in everything around me without any sort of filters. I also wanted to be able to explore everything inside of me without any distractions. And there's something weird when you immerse yourself in a lengthy experience like that, literally 7 days of just me, myself, and I. I don't remember the last time I actually did that. No interruptions with phone calls. I think I only replied to maybe 3 text messages or even acknowledged that I got them during that whole trip. But I did get to spend a lot of time inside my own head. And it wasn't like I was looking for anything specific. I just thought, well, I don't know what's bothering me lately. I've been feeling bothered. But if somebody was going to ask me, can you tell me what it is that's on your mind? What is it that's setting you off? Gun to my head, I don't know that I could have answered that. I think I got an answer now, though, because when I got all of the noise out of the way, when I hit the mute switch on the outside world, when all that was left was the experiences internally and externally, I was open to surprises. I mean, I had no idea what was going to come next. For an example of an external surprise, I saw a wolf standing on the side of the highway, just looking around. Wasn't concerned that he was going to run out of the traffic. He just seemed interested in watching the cars go by. Which, I didn't know wolves did that sort of thing. I also spent a little bit of time running through ideas for topics I might want to cover on this podcast, and one of the things that I had fully expected to write about and to do like a big presentation on was how, when somebody talks poorly about you behind your back, they gossip about you, they slander you, they do whatever they can to interfere with your otherwise good reputation. I think there's a part of us that kind of feels like we need to respond. We need to set the record straight. And that was the sentence I was kind of like working off of, was this idea that sometimes setting the record straight is a form of self-care. I truly believed that that was the case. But after having some time to think about it and seeing like how does that apply to my specific situation right now in this moment, I'm not sure I can commit to that position anymore. A lot of people have said lately that, hey, you don't really talk about family estrangement enough anymore. You used to talk more about estrangement, and that's going to change today. Because I'm dealing with estrangement from a number of family members, honestly, but there's one relationship in particular that is actually kind of bothering me. And anybody who's been following me since the beginning of me talking about estrangement, starting off co-hosting, co-producing When the Bow Breaks, co-hosting The Estranged Heart. You know that my relationship with my mother has always been a difficult one. Like going back to early childhood, it was a difficult relationship. But a few years ago, it seemed like she and I had each done enough work where it was time to explore the possibility of a reconciliation, which we did. I had a lot of things making me want to hold back coming into that because I had already grieved her loss as though she had died. I cried my tears. I had established a new normal that didn't really involve a place for her. There wasn't even really there was no particular need even to allow her an opportunity to RSVP a place in the future. Just my life did not involve my mom, which it's going to sound really cold, but I mean, I only got to this point after a lot of tears and a lot of work. That was fine. It was fine. But despite the fact that exploring a reconciliation with her was really, really shaking up my comfortable routine, at the same time, I thought, well, this is something I need to do. Because I need to know. I need to know. And it's not like we jumped right back into it and everything was fine. But I mean, her and I managed to grow together. We figured each other out. We had a bunch of difficult conversations. We apologized to each other for certain things. We owned up to certain things with each other. We pointed things out to each other. We realized things about each other and how we interacted, and even realized things about ourselves in the company of each other. It was a beautiful, beautiful time. And when I say a beautiful time, I'm not talking about just, once we got to the point where, hey, we've gotten all the ugly stuff out of the way and we can relax and have a relationship. It was beautiful going through the pain and the challenge and the uncertainty of building towards getting along. It really was. Because I had never experienced that side of my mom. And I don't know if she had ever really experienced that side of me. We had never really, I can't say we didn't give each other the chance. I feel like I had given her the chance, but she wasn't terribly interested in taking it. But all of that aside, we finally had the opportunity to explore our relationship in a way that we had never done before. And really, it was a beautiful thing. I gained such a deep appreciation of my mom and her story, where she came from, the things that shaped her, the things that helped her develop certain attitudes, maybe even the things that caused her to malfunction in certain ways. a little bit of understanding goes so far as appreciating the complexities of another human being, even if that human being is just incredibly difficult in the day-to-day. And, for the first time in my life, when I looked at my mom, I could tell her without any reservation, I love you. I'm glad you're in my life. I can't imagine not having you. And when you're dealing with somebody who's elderly and in poor health, this idea of what is it going to be like when they're gone? It's not being morbid to accept the reality that the next 5 minutes even aren't guaranteed. At any given moment, this person could just keel over and be gone. And I really tried to approach my mom in every interaction with this in mind. I mean, not like I was living in fear of her dropping dead on me. It was just a reality of the situation. I mean, she was in the exit lounge. All of this time, I thought that she had a similar appreciation of me, like for the first time in years. I mean, because we were estranged, like no contact at all for like 6-7 years, something like that. I really did believe that she not only appreciated having her son back in her life, but that maybe she had gotten to know me and understand me the way I had gotten to know and understand her. That maybe the idea of having to maybe not lose me because of death, but lose me to circumstance had weighed on her, and that maybe she didn't like the idea of living without me. My health isn't always great either. And I do go through times where I struggle with thoughts of ending things. So while I don't think we were exactly on equal footing, I mean, there was a reasonable chance that either of us could have lost the other, So it really did come as a surprise to me when somebody that I was in a relationship with, somebody who was abusive towards me, somebody who was struggling with, their own stuff, mental, chemical, environmental, starting in childhood. I mean, this person really didn't have an easy time of things. And it's not a judgment against her that she doesn't always operate in the nicest or healthiest ways. I mean, she's got her stuff that she needs to figure out how to deal with. But part of her, I'll say malfunction, is that sometimes she just gets it in her head that she needs to go and gossip about somebody. And for the last, I don't know how long. I mean, I only know when the gossip came full circle and some of the stories started coming back to me, but suffice it to say that she was saying some unkind and untrue things about me to a lot of the people that were closest to me. I mean, when she reached out to my brother Jason, the other host of this show, he at least had the decency to immediately contact me and say, hey, this is the message I got. How would you like me to respond to it? I didn't get anything that direct from my mom. It seemed like my mom was actually more interested in lending her ears to the gossip than in understanding what might actually be going on. And it's not like I was expecting blind loyalty to my mother. Of course not. If somebody comes and says, hey, I got a problem with AC. This guy's a jerk. He's whatever things they want to say, I fully expect that, you're not going to assume I'm a nice guy. Assume that this is a story that may be worth exploring. If it's something you can help with, well then, reach out to me. Say, hey, this is what I heard from so-and-so. I would like to help. I do have concerns based on what I've been told. What's your side of things? And from there, I would expect that you would make a determination about what you actually think about the situation. My mom didn't do that. My mom heard some ugly things, and instead of defending me, instead of drawing on what she had learned to be true of me over the last several years through our reconciliation, instead of understanding that there's multiple sides to every story, she invested in the gossip. She lent her ear to it. She reciprocated it. She came up with all sorts of ugly memories about what kind of terrible things I've said and done in the past. And hey, I don't hide from that. I have said and done some terrible things in the past, but anybody who's been following me through my podcasting journey, you know that I own up to these things. I'm not proud of them, but I'm not going to try to bury them either. I have done and said some horrible and hateful things in my past, but I'm not that person anymore, and I haven't been for quite a long time, honestly. So to find out that my mother, you know, the relationship that I treasured the most, the one that meant the most to me because it was so unexpected, to find out that that was just so meaningless on the other end, that hurt quite a bit. And while I don't want to say try to put the record straight, but I mean, I did challenge her and said, like, why is it that you're so disinterested in my side of the story? Why are the ugly things so easy for you to accept? But the other option, which is that the ugly stuff maybe didn't happen, that just seems impossible to you. The idea that when you're listening to somebody talk to you from a place of trauma, from a place of early childhood abuse, from a place of mental illness, from a place of substance abuse, when you look at them and you think, you know what? I can't accept that any of these things might be true of them because they seem normal to me. I mean, never mind the detailed psychological assessment that was done by a mental health professional for this individual. Never mind that. She seemed normal when she was with me. Which, fine. That's your experience. Cool. But just because somebody seemed okay with you doesn't mean that they are okay across the board. Just because you don't expect that they're capable of ugly things doesn't mean that they aren't capable of ugly things. And what I realized about my mom is that she just seemed to make up her mind about certain people. You know, this person is good. This person is bad. No matter what my realm of experience is with this person, I have decided you are good. I have decided you are bad. So nothing you do or say is really going to change that. And I certainly learned that the hard way, because as much as my mother's experience with me have been overwhelmingly positive, as much as I've been there for her in every imaginable capacity, you know, when she had an incident when I was staying with her, she had a fairly explosive problem in the bathroom, we'll say. She'd painted the walls, bathtub, the toilet, the floor, even a little bit on the ceiling, like explosive decompression, you know, because she took some medication that didn't agree with her, and it came out aggressively, and it was a smelly, stinky, wet mess. And she thought she'd cleaned up okay, but I mean, she's got macular degeneration, so her eyesight's pretty terrible. She's mostly blind. So when she came out of the bathroom, she says, "I'm really, really sorry, son." She did, like, you know, you might have heard some noises, but this is what was going on. I did clean up. Everything's fine. I went into the bathroom. I realized, man, things were not clean. Not even a little bit clean. And so I grabbed the cleaning supplies and I wiped everything down. And when she came to me later and said, "Well, you know, I'm really, really sorry. I didn't expect you to go and scrub my poop off of every surface." She was in tears, you know, couldn't believe I would do that for her. And I didn't understand the big deal, you know? What I told her was, look, you changed how many of my diapers when I was a baby? The least I can do is clean your walls. And I meant it. You know, I'm not saying this to like build myself up or pat myself on the back, but I mean, this is the way I approach my mom. It's just so matter of fact. It's like, you need a thing. I'm capable of doing the thing. I'm going to do it because you're mom and I love you. When she wasn't feeling good and she had a specific craving for something that I know how to cook. I mean, I don't live in the same city as her. I live 1,000 kilometers away. Jumped on an airplane and I flew out and I cooked for her. Because she's my mom and I love her. So how is it that these acts of love are just so meaningless that all it takes is one person to come and say, you know what, your son's an asshole. For her to turn around and say, you know what, you're right. That hurts. And it is damaging to me. And as much as I didn't want to lose my mom again, I couldn't get through to her. I couldn't get her to see my value. She just wasn't interested. Not interested at all. And so how that all ties together with what I was saying at the beginning about, you know, how I was having second thoughts about my original position, that sometimes setting the record straight is an act of self-love, self-care. I realized that if somebody actually cares about you and they respect you, there's no need to set the record straight, because they will hear something terrible about you and they'll think, that's not the person I know. They'll think that doesn't sound right. I'm going to have to get a hold of them and find out their side of the story. There's a lot of things they're going to think. But the one thing they're not going to do is jump straight to, I like the sound of this dramatic, horrible, backstabbing gossip. I'm going to roll with that. It doesn't matter how much they've invested in building a quality reputation. I'm going to ignore all of the hard work they've done because I've heard somebody say some words. Anybody whose view of us is that fragile, where they can hear one ugly thing and think, you know what? F*** you. This is not somebody to go crawling after and say, hey, but there's a side to the story you haven't heard. Please value me. Please love me. Please appreciate me. Please, you know, hey, can I remind you of like all the good things I did? I mean, how desperate is that? They don't want to see the good in you. They don't want to see the good in us. What they want is whatever is the most dramatic, ugly, whatever thing. And when they get it, good times are over. So I spend a lot of time building my reputation. And it's not like I'm trying to cultivate this image of me. I mean, I think anybody who listens to this show, anybody who's listened to me long enough knows that in the moment, I'll just talk about where I'm actually at. I don't try to hide anything. There's no point in it. Lies are really, really difficult to maintain and to organize and to manage. The truth is super easy. There's nothing to keep track of. I mean, it's just like you either remember or you don't. There's no shit involved. It's just a case of like, to the best of my knowledge, this is the thing that happened. And to the best of my knowledge, every time I tell that story, it's always going to be the same thing that happened because I haven't invented anything. So it's not like I'm trying to be this like pillar of morality. It's like pure laziness on my part and maybe a little bit of stupidity. I'm not like ambitious or intelligent enough to keep track of a whole lot of dishonesty and deception. I can handle the truth just fine. The truth causes me far less anxiety. Even if the truth makes me look like I'm not that nice of a person sometimes, the truth is what you're going to get. So if you haven't heard it from me, but you hear it from somebody else, I have either just not had a chance to talk about it, or it's not true. Either way, you come to me if you care. If you are interested in setting the record straight, I'm not going to have to chase after you to do it. You're going to come to me and say, hey, can you set the record straight? So while, yeah, maybe to a certain degree, setting the record straight is a form of self-love, I don't think that manifests when we're chasing after people to set the record straight. I think taking the opportunity that somebody brings to your lap when they say, hey, can you tell me about this thing? At that point, when you set the record straight, maybe it's not even like self-love or self-care. Maybe it's just appreciating the fact that like somebody else cares enough about you. Maybe it's just something warm and fuzzy to enjoy. I don't know. Like I said, I just came off of a very, very, very long drive and I've had very little rest in the last week. So my thoughts may not be coming out as clearly as maybe I'd like them to, but all of that to say this. Don't hesitate if you hear something that doesn't sound right to you. Or even if it does sound right, but you're unsure, you have any amount of doubt in the quality of the information, go to the other party and say, hey, I heard this thing. I don't want to be a gossip. It either is your business and you can say, hey, this affects me. I'd like to know, like, what's up with that? Have that conversation. If it actually isn't your business, there's two people you need to tell. You need to tell the person who's gossiping to you, you know what, I don't need to hear this. This is none of my business. Then you've got to go to the person that was being talked about and say, hey, I'm telling you because I would want to know if I was in your shoes. So-and-so was saying this and that about you. I don't want to get in the middle of it. Just thought you should know. Backing off now. You're still my friend. I still love you. It's all I wanted from my mom. When I hear something bad, you know, that's how I handle it. I'm not interested in participating in gossip, either actively or passively. I'm just not interested. I'm also not interested in hearing anybody slander my loved ones. You got something to say about them, say it to them. Just don't be shitty about it. There's no need. Anyways, my friends, I think I've been going on for about a half hour now. I'm going to just stop and go get some much needed sleep. Next week will be a return to a more normal kind of format. As always, if you've got thoughts on this or anything else I've spoken about, feel free to send me an email in thebloodpod@gmail.com. And until next time, much love.